Good evening, everybody. Welcome to Monday Night Baseball, 108 Stitches Baseball Talk. My name is Scott Morgan, off the Motor City Madmouth. It is championship night. People, Michigan against Connecticut. Wonder what I'm wearing. You know who I'm rooting for. All you need to do is look at the cap. But that said, we're going to talk a little bit of college basketball tonight. We're going to have some interesting championship individuals that'll be in here as far as topics are concerned. But let's talk about the championship crew that I have. Starting off with Bigfoot.
Good evening. Glad to be here.
And we have Candy.
Always glad talking some summer baseball with all you gentlemen.
And we have my Uncle Warren Brewster.
Glad to be here, Scott. Thank you for having me.
I love
As
having
always.
you, Barry, and everybody that comes on here. I love having you. And tonight it's Hollywood Tony. Wednesday it'll be Bessemer City Tony. Make sure you don't forget that, Tony. Okay.
I got you.
And he's my mentor, by the way, on TikTok. Okay.
No, you're doing well. I'm seeing the post. You're doing good.
I'm working on it. I call it my new toy, anyway. By the way, it doesn't matter. But anyway, we've got a big loaded show. We're gonna no sound by side. Decided to wait till next week to put them on here, but we have plenty to talk about. We're gonna talk about championships, and we're gonna start off about once upon a time, the Oakland A's ran up a bunch of them. So what we're going to do is we're going to talk about their all-time lineup, and I'll go outfield all the way around, and everybody on the panel can pick a player or two that they think they like the best. All right, the outfielders consist of Jose Canseco, Ricky Henderson, Reggie Jackson. Boy, that's a pretty good lineup, I would say. It's juiced, to say the least. If you get the analogy, you know what I'm talking about. And then we have the third baseman is Eric Chavez. Shortstop Miguel Tejada, second baseman definitely before your time, Tony, maybe mine too. You have Max Bishop, and then first baseman you have Jimmy Fox. Your starting pitcher is Catfish Hunter. Your third baseman is Eric Chavez. Your relief pitcher is Dennis Eckersley. Catcher Terry Steinbach. DH Mark McGuire and Connie Mack. All right, Barry, who do you like the best out of this group?
Well, I just have to go with my old teammate Reggie Jackson. I mean, I think that outfield's pretty stacked up. You could go with any of those, but I like Reggie. Reggie put a lot of rings on his finger, not only with Oakland, with the Yankees as well. So I'll go with Reggie.
Candy?
I think I'm probably going to go outside the normal and outside the box. I'm going to say Dennis Eckersley. I mean, he's one of two pitchers in Major League history to have both a 20-win season and a 50-save season in his career.
Candy. That's a darn good choice. That's all I'll say. All right, Uncle Warren, tell me who you got.
Well, I got to go with Catfish Hunter. I loved watching him pitch. I was living in the Bay Area when the A's moved to Oakland, and I got to see him pitch a few times. And I enjoyed that ballpark, and I've been there recently. Last year, before they closed, I took my youngest son and my partner. The three of us went to a game. Saw the Toronto Blue Jays and the Oakland A's. But I used to go there on a regular basis when I was younger, when I was living in the Bay Area.
All right, Tony.
I gotta agree with Bigfoot here, man. I gotta go Reggie Jackson, Mr. October, until Jeter became Mr. November. That was the thing to be. Like you say, all the rings, and then he's part of the two most winning franchises in the American League when it comes to pennants. Reggie Jackson, man, all day. Plus, if I pick somebody other than Reggie Jackson, my dad might disown me, so I got to roll with that.
So now you really told us the whole thing. You know what? I am not going against Catfish Hunter in any way, shape, or form. I'll tell you what. Not only do I love him as a pitcher, baseball has a lot to be thankful because he got one of those first $1 million contracts through the Yankees. And I also have a plaque of him with his actual signed signature. I bought it at Cooperstown right here at home. So there's no doubt I got to go with. Yeah, it's not personalized, but boy, I'd love to be able to go out there and at least see his cemetery. I think he's buried in North Carolina somewhere. So the Catfish Hunter does it for me. All right, so let's go ahead and talk about Kevin McGonigal, MLB second-ranked prospect. Actually made the Tigers on opening day roster. Barry, some quick thoughts about Kevin McGonigal.
Well, I think we're going to talk about what Justin Verlander says about him. I think when you get somebody of Verlander's stature saying good things about you, you can play. I haven't seen him play a whole lot, just highlights, but it looks like he can do everything. Maybe he doesn't have the greatest, maybe he does have good speed. I saw he beat out a base hit or something, and he was running in the elite status as far as speed goes. Evidently, he can play defense. He can hit with power. He can do all the things. Looks like a 5-tool guy. So yeah, I think he's the real deal.
Candies.
He split back in. Okay, so the Tigers selected him 37th overall in the 2023 draft. On July 21st, 2023, he signed with the Tigers. He split time between the Florida Complex League Tigers and the Single A Tigers. In 2024, he was between Lakeland and High A West Michigan Whitecaps. In 74 games between the two affiliates, he hit .309, 5 home runs, 44 ribbies, and 22 stolen bases. But his season ended early after he was diagnosed with a right hamate fracture. It required surgery. So then he returned to Western Michigan to begin the 2025 season. He did represent the Tigers at the 2025 All-Star Futures game at Truist Park. He went to Double-A, and then he worked his way up. And then on March 24th, the Tigers announced he made the opening day roster for the Tigers. He made his major league debut on March 26th of 2026. He got 4 hits, include 2 ribbies. 2 ribbies off for his first major league hit. And kudos to him, to make it and keep going even after he got injured and stuff like that. So it's good to see. And yeah, it sounds like he's got some speed. If he had 22 stolen bases in 74 games, that's pretty good.
You know what? I just got a contact from Fernando Vargas. So I want to ask you guys a question. Would you like a report from the Final Four?
Yes.
Yeah, you know what? Okay. I'll bring him on. Go ahead and let's finish the topic. I'm going to bring Fernando Vargas reporting from the Final Four. This is pretty cool. He's one of our new partners. Go ahead, Warren.
Okay. Well, what I saw about McGonigal is 21 years old, so he's just a pup. He's young, and he's one of only 6 players since 1900 to have 4 hits opening game, or his first game in the big leagues. So he's got quite a future. 21 years old, and has all the tools. And like Barry said, just Justin Verlander compared him to Alex Bregman. So that's a pretty good comparison. That's not a bad start for a 21-year-old. Bregman's been an all-star and a perennial Gold Glover, so he's got quite a future ahead of him.
Okay, Tony.
Yeah, letting the young kids play early seems to be what the league is trending towards, right? The kid from the Mariners, the shortstop, gets $130 million. You get the kid from the Pirates, he just got $140 million. But I will say this: last week, or maybe 2 weeks ago now, I was doing a thing with different players or different people from fan bases of the sport. And I had someone who was down at Tigers scouting in Arizona, and she was raving about him and saying that this will probably be the year that he breaks out. And sure enough, opening day, he gets his 4 hits. I made a point to make sure to text her, like, you saw it, and you clearly are going to be a good scout in baseball. So people have been seeing it, and it's cool to see it coming to fruition right now for him.
Well, here's what you have with McGonigal. The Tigers never made any major moves offensively during the offseason. So they evidently felt they had something in this kid to move him up, is what they ended up doing, to give him an opportunity, or they would have brought in somebody else. And with that said, until we get Fernando, Katie, help you send the invite, right? And if not, I need you to please do so, and he'll come on in a moment. Well, let's transition to Justin Verlander. Thanks, Barry. This co-hosting and hosting thing is doing pretty good. There may be a job opening as my Alzheimer's gets worse, and you're the one who's going to run the show. I'll still write the topics for you. But anyways, not thinking that part too much. But yeah, Justin Verlander said McGonigal reminds him of Alex Bregman. He's really into the game, like watches and sees a lot of everything. All right, Barry, you talked about it. What are your thoughts about what Verlander had to say about him?
I think the most important part about that was the kid is cerebral, that he really thinks about the game, because that's the hardest part for young kids, is a lot of times they have the talent, but they don't have the mentality. And it sounds like what Verlander sees is a guy who's, understands the games, trying to learn the game. And I think that'll really bode well for him, because it's obvious he has the tools to be a good player. A lot of guys have the tools, but don't have the brains. It sounds like he's got both.
All right, we're going to go to you in a moment, Fernando. We're just going to finish this topic real quick, okay? So stay on and listen to the show if I haven't lost you already, but we'll get him. All right, Candy, some thoughts about what Justin had to say.
Yeah, he's saying that he compares his focus and his high IQ play style. You don't see that a lot. A lot of people don't talk about other people's focus, and so that's really kind of cool. It's high praise for someone that's just coming up.
I want to thank you. How we doing, everybody? All right, how you doing?
All right, Candy, continue on. Fernando, we're going to be right with you in just a moment.
Remember,
Right.
inside, man. Let me represent.
What's that, Candy?
I
How's
just
everybody doing tonight?
All right, well, you know what? We're going to get that report first. All right, Fernando is live from Indianapolis Lucas Oil Stadium. Tell me what you got out there. I'll introduce the group. We have Barry Bigfoot. Okay, then we have Warren Brewster, used to be on the Phillies. Barry was with the Yankees, among other places. We got Hollywood Tony, Candy, and yours truly. All right, give it to me. Yeah. It's all yours, Fernando.
All right.
Well, it was all his. All right, well, we'll bring him back in a moment. So, okay, where are we at here? We'll continue on. Warren, some thoughts about what Justin had to say about Alex
Well, that's
and McGonigal.
Yeah, about McGonigal. I play with Pete Rose, and that's the way Pete was. Pete would,
Right.
making out or whatever, he'd flip his batting helmet to the bat boy, and he'd sit on the top step of the dugout, and nothing got by him. If somebody moved here, moved there, he said, "Whoa, see what he's doing? Here comes this." Pete was always one step ahead. And that's what it sounds like this kid's going to do. He's kind of following in Pete's footsteps as far as being in tune to the game and paying attention to what's going on.
Hollywood?
Look, if you can be compared to somebody who's been an all-star, who's been a champion multiple times, and probably collected $200-300 million, that ain't bad. But like Bigfoot said, it's mental. You know what I'm saying? Once you reach a certain level of athlete in any sport, you're there because of the physical tools, right? It's the mental edge that normally separates the good from the great. And he's already showing that to somebody who's seen a lot of baseball. So he's seen the knuckleheads and he's seen the people who can mentally be great in the sport. So that's high praise. Hopefully he can keep it up, which I'm sure he will.
Well, go blue. I'm with you there, Fernando. We'll look forward to seeing you Thursday night on Fire Up. Yeah, as far as I'm concerned, if you could compare him with Alex Bregman, who is a very good player, that to me, that's a pretty good comparison. And Justin ought to know. But Kevin McGonigal, the future is bright, but let's not put too many expectations on him in first year, because Don Mattingly once told me just because you know the transition from AAA to major leagues is much more difficult than anywhere else in the minor leagues, because you have to learn how to hit MLB pitching for sure. But I like where everybody's going with that. So hopefully, if Fernando comes on, he does. Otherwise, you got a taste of how exciting things are going to be at the Final Four. So as we continue here, Bob Melvin's been hired by the A's as a special assistant to baseball operations. Some thoughts, Barry?
Oh, he's a great baseball guy. He's got pedigree. He's been a great manager. Well, no, not managing, but he's got a long history that will bode well for him over there. He's a good choice for the A's to bring on.
Can never have enough good baseball minds in an organization. Candy?
Oh, come on, Scott. He's right up your alley. He's a former catcher. former catchers always make good managers,
That's
right?
Yeah, no
They-
question in there.
So one thing I will say about catchers is that they're used to seeing the whole field in front of them, so that they have a different perspective. And I think that obviously Melvin's done really well for himself. I mean, he's managed for what, 21 years, three-time manager of the year, World Series champion. He's as a player, he played for the Tigers, the Giants, the Orioles, the Royals, the Sox, the Yankees, and the White Sox. As a manager, the Mariners, the Diamondbacks, Athletics, Padres, Giants, and as a coach, my Milwaukee Brewers, the Detroit Tigers, and Arizona Diamondbacks. So he's been with so many different clubs that he's picked up a little bit from each of them. And if you learn a little bit from each stop, hey, more power to them, and getting a good hire like that as a resource.
Warren,
Well, I think the A's are in a rebuild. You know, they've been spinning their wheels for 3 or 4 years now. Number one, with needing a new stadium, and now they're going to get one in Las Vegas. And to bring Bob Melvin in, you know, you're laying the foundation for the future of the A's organization. He's a great baseball man. He's familiar with the organization, and I'm sure the people that are running the organization are very familiar with him. So he's a great hire. You know, and you can't have enough old baseball people that, you know the game, you know, and just like Candy and Bigfoot said, you know, catchers are where they see things a whole different perspective, you know, so they know a lot more about the game than anybody else on the field.
well, Bob Melvin's one with the A's too. Keep that in mind.
Right.
So obviously, it's a much different situation from Oakland to Sacramento to eventually Vegas. But yeah, like I said, Warren, and there, you said it yourselves. You never have enough good baseball minds in the organization for
Right.
sure. Tony,
Yeah, like you guys have said with catchers, they're like the point guards of the team, right? They're normally the generals. He's moved around a lot of places, so that means he's clearly can deal with a lot of personalities. He's took in a lot of different information. He's like probably a gumbo of baseball. He's been so many different places, learned so many things over his time, a baseball lifer. Hopefully it works out with the A's. I don't know. It just seems like a constant mess over there. But hopefully he could be the person that helps steer the ship in the right direction.
that's fair. Okay, let's talk about Commissioner Rob Manfred's path to the Commissioner of Major League Baseball. What I'm going to ask you, everybody on the group here, to do is give us your own opinion how he's done. I'll break down the particulars. He attended Cornell as an undergrad and Harvard Law School. He joined MLB as the Executive Vice President of Economics and League Affairs. Then he led MLB's investigation of the biogenesis scandal. We all know about that one. He's promoted to COO and then elected to succeed Bud Selig a year later. And now he's responsible for the pitch clock, the ghost runner on second, the All-Star game swing off, and more. So, Barry, your thoughts about the job that the commissioner's done?
Not a big fan. Sorry.
That's okay.
I like a Selig type guy who's a real baseball guy who had skin in the game, worked his way, you know. I can tell you the statement that when I was with the Yankees, we're playing Milwaukee. We were up 2 games. We go to Milwaukee. Now we're 2-2, and we come back home. And Steinbrenner comes in. And he says, "Don't let that used car dealer beat us in this playoff game now." But I like Selig. I like his style, more grassroots. Although I will say, you know, Manfred's got a hard job. He's putting in some new things. I think baseball does have to try to get into the 21st century. So I like some of the stuff he's done, but you know, some of the woke stuff that he's done, I don't like too much about what he's done. So I'm not a big fan of his, but he's going to be like most of them. He'll probably be commissioner for life until he decides to retire.
Candy?
Well, if you don't know by now that I'm a huge Bud Selig fan, I mean, let's face it, you know, he stems from Milwaukee, so you gotta love Bud Selig. But Manfred's done okay. If you compare him with other commissioners of other leagues, like let's say Roger Goodell of NFL. I mean, the NFL has marketed themselves. MLB's trying. I just think they're slower at it. But he is increasing like the World Baseball Classic. We've seen some of those. We've seen some of the like the Ghost Runner, which I don't know if I like the Ghost Runner, but do I like the new ABS, the challenge system? Yes, and I like watching it, and I like seeing when, whoever's challenging is getting it right. Like we're human. I mean, but so do I like the job Manfred's done? I think he could do better, but he's what we've got. So we're with him right now. So
I like Candy said he's what we've got right now. Great segue to you, Warren. Good.
Yeah,
That was
yeah.
good, Candy.
Yeah, that's a great point.
He's what we've got right now,
right
Candy.
now.
yeah.
All right, that was
And
good.
he's going to earn his money next year when the basic agreement runs out the 1st of December. We'll find out what he's made of.
Yep.
Mhm.
Yeah, but and they're trying to. A lot of this is, they're reinventing the game. It's just I don't like the Ghost Runner at all.
No.
They're trying to save pitching staffs, and there's pitching staffs. There's 10 relievers on every team. You tell me you're going to run out of pitchers in a game? That's impossible. You can play 25 innings. One year we were in Philadelphia, we had 11 men that pitched the entire season, and we never had to use a position player. I mean, that's embarrassing. It's the game's changed completely. So, they're having to reinvent it, and he's the head of it. And, so some of the things that he has instituted are, old school, don't really go for a lot of this stuff.
And now the Ghost Runner, please get rid of it. I hate it. I really do.
Yes.
Give me a break. It doesn't help the pitchers out there stuck inheriting that runner.
Yeah.
Yes, no earned run, but a loss waiting to happen.
Yes.
I don't like it. Pitch clock, maybe a little bit. People are getting used to it.
I agree with the pitch clock. That's one thing because they had to speed the game up. Some guys were taking a minute between pitches. That's ridiculous.
The ABS to me is a TBD. I'm not going to talk about it that much. We'll have Don Mattingly talk about it next week, but not tonight, as we have hopefully the whole crew. Want to make sure we get as many opinions on that as we can. All right, Holly, what are your thoughts about the commissioner?
So I like some of the new stuff. Pitch clock, of course. Like they showed a side by side of literally an inning happening in the amount of a time of a pitcher facing one batter at some points. I like the things that sped up the game. I'm like you guys. I don't like the Ghost Runner. That's a little too much. But the one thing that I'm never gonna really, I wouldn't say forgive him for, but I'm not gonna be able to gloss over his resume is 2020 COVID season. They should have figured out a way to start way sooner than what they did. They had a jump, and they literally was probably the only sport where your players can be spread out and you can figure out how to play. And they literally had a chance to capture the youth of America, because that is pretty much lost in today's MLB is the youth of America. And they really had a chance to capture TV and capture sports, and they let all the business of it ruin it. And I feel like him as a commissioner, he should have stepped in and tried to figure that out. Outside of that, he's been doing okay. I mean, to quote the great Candy, he's who we got. So like, man, we got to deal with him. It's an imperfect job, right? I'm sure we can all find ways that he could have did things better. Who knows what he's up against in certain situations, So I'm pretty sure he's doing the best that he feels that he can. But like Warren said, come December 2nd, he's going to earn that money. We're going to see how good he is as a commissioner.
Yeah, Candy, if I were you, I'd make sure that becomes a short. At all costs. I don't care what you have to do.
Mm-hmm.
So, Cliff, I have a present for you. We're talking about baseball realignment tonight, but you get it on Wednesday night's edition of the Sports Exchange. So, rather than me put your comments up, we'll let you talk about it. And you know what? When you get to spar with Eric Katz, as this group knows, it ought to be really, really interesting. So, we're going to give you a piece of that realignment action. Let's talk about the San Diego Padres and go back to their trade deadline, because the amount of prospects that they traded and the positions are unbelievable. I'm going to read down the list. They traded their number 1 prospect, Leo DeVries, who's a shortstop. Their number 3 prospect, Braden Nett, a right-handed pitcher. Their number 4 guy, Boston Bateman, a left-handed pitcher. Number 6, Chris Hightower, a shortstop. Number 7, Ryan Bergert, a right-handed pitcher. Number 12, Tyson Neighbors, a right-handed pitcher. Then you also have number 13, Henry Baez, a right-handed pitcher. Number 17, Edernio Nunez, a right-handed pitcher. And I repeat, number 17. Then you have number 26, Brandon Valenzuela, no relation to Fernando. Of course, people will want to know about that. They got number 29, Victor Ferreira. Then you have a right-handed pitcher, Tanner Smith. Another right-handed pitcher, Brandon Butterell, and Steven Kolek's a right-handed pitcher. So give me your thoughts, Barry, about what San Diego traded out.
Well, if you're going to trade away those kind of prospects, you better have some rings on your fingers at the end of it, and they haven't. So I think it's very, very difficult to trade into being a winner. The Yankees were trying to do that after they'd won in 77 and 78. They did a lot of trading, but when they finally turned it around was when they built from within, and they got strong up the middle and they built from within. I think, if you're going to have long-term success, you got to build from within. I just don't see. I think if you've got one piece that you're trying to build your ball club with, a starting pitcher or a starting player that's going to really get you over the hump, that's a different thing. But when you trade away that many prospects and don't have rings on your finger, you better regroup and figure it out.
Well, one of the guys you're probably referring to is Willie McGee, who went on to be with the St. Louis Cardinals, won a ring over there. I remember that. I was in Fort Lauderdale at the time. Warren?
Well, there's no question. San Diego, they're ranked 30th in their minor league system, so they don't have a lot. Their cupboard's pretty bare. They've traded them all away, trying to get the right pieces for the big club, and so far it hasn't worked out. And they're not off to a very good start again this year. So it's what they're doing is not working. So it's time to regroup. Start all over again. Because that's what it takes. It takes an organization. You got to build from within. The teams that have had success, Houston's like the latest team that they've been in contention for the last 10 years because they built from within. They took, they lost over 100 games 2 or 3 years in a row, but those kids developed, and they developed in a big league level, and all of a sudden now they're winning, and now they've been pretty successful for the last 10 years. And that's what it takes. You've got to build from within the organization. You can go out and get a piece or two, but you can't buy a World Series. Doesn't work that way anymore.
Well, they traded a heck of a lot of players, didn't they?
Right.
We're not talking with the amount of names I rattled off here, being enough to field a baseball team or two, the amount that I had to. I'm not talking 1 or 2, 3. We're talking about 10, 15.
The whole organization.
Well, that's why they're ranked number 30th, as you went ahead and said, Uncle Warren, because look who laughed. Right. Why do you think they're selling the club? So, all right, Hollywood, with what value you have left in the farm system. So, all right, Hollywood, Tony.
You know what? I figured that Barry and Warren, y'all knew baseball. I had a feeling. And this just proves it right here because y'all are saying the truth. Because I'm thinking about how you guys are saying you build from within, right? And even if you look at the Dodgers, people talk about the Dodgers, all their signings, all this stuff. They have they normally have the top 2 or 3. I think they're number 1 farm system in baseball. They keep a great farm system because that is ultimately how you win. But if I was a Padres prospect, when the 6th right-handed pitcher got traded out and I'm number 7, I know I'm about to go. They clearly had a vendetta against all their right-handed pitchers. You name like 7 or 8 of them, Scott. Geesh, what was going on with that?
No, I know.
Yeah, it's like, hey, if you throw right-handed, we do not want you at all. And then you add one of their top prospects was a shortstop. And they have this crazy, ridiculous Xander Bogaerts deal that they have to deal with that's anchoring down their payroll as well. And think that could have been somebody who was called up that could have been cheap and might have been playing even better at shortstop by now than Xander Bogaerts is. So this just shows that the Padres were trying to be the Dodgers, but not really knowing what the recipe was to make the meal. Because the Dodgers also have the great farm system behind them.
Everybody summed it up good. All right, Candy, what's your takeaway from all of this?
Well, I just have to, sorry, Hollywood Tony, but I have to correct you because this is the first year since 2016 that the Milwaukee Brewers have the best farm system in 2026. Sorry. Had to get
You
that
got
in
it. You got it. You got it. My bad. My bad.
No, that's okay. That's okay. But I will say, San Diego made 5 separate trades at the deadline, acquiring 8 players while sending out 14 players to various organizations in a flurry of win now moves. That all, as a group, over the last few weeks, we've talked about having a few needs with the big league team. Probably adding a couple of bats, addressing left field, the bench, looking at the catching spot, seeing if there's a possibility to change the mix there, potentially looking in the rotation, adding some more arms. Okay, so if at the trade deadline you have to add that many players, are you really in contention? I mean, come on, like everybody has said, normally you want to add 1 or 2 pieces. You need a good bat, or you need a pitcher or something. Or I hate to keep going back to my Brewers, but my Brewers have one of the lowest payrolls. They have a really good farm system. They know how to develop the players. Let's face it, Pat Murphy's gotten Manager of the Year the last 2 years because of what he's done. He's taken a lot of no-name players and gotten them to play together and to make the playoffs. It's not always about having the big name players. It's about getting the most out of the players that you have playing together as a team. And yeah, if you need that many players at the trade deadline, do you really think you're win now mode? And I guess that's one of the things that the Brewers have done fairly well, is that they don't have to always make that one or that flurry of moves. Maybe they add 1 or 2 players, but they definitely develop from within.
Yeah, but Candy, the Padres emptied out the cupboard. Is what they did. We're not talking 1 or 2 players. Listen, I know my math is awful, but I can count as high as I had to write down when you log it in later. That's a lot of players. But since you talked about the Brewers, we'll go ahead and segue to them because the Brewers and back-to-back manager Pat Murphy have agreed to a 3-year contract extension with a club option for 2029. For Ken Rosenthal, some thoughts about the Brewers retaining Mr. Murphy, Barry?
Well, I think it's great for the organization. I would have probably given him a 5-year deal. I mean, he's performed. He's evidently the players really like him. He's one of those guys that have gone from the college level up to the major league level and done a great job. So he deserves whatever he got. I think if anything, they probably should have given him a 5-year rather than 3 with an option.
All right, Candy.
I think this was excellent signing. I think Pat Murphy has gotten the most out of his players. He is very well liked. I don't think it was a matter of how long, or I think he knew he was going to get that it was just going to align. I think sometimes it's just the money, sometimes it's that other stuff. But I know he's said that he is really happy. If you watch some of his press conferences after the game, his kids are there. All of the players like playing for him. And I think he makes the most out of them. A lot of people thought when Craig Counsell took his talent south a state to the Cubs, a lot of people were really worried what was going to happen because Craig had such a pedigree and he was so loved. For him to go to what is undoubtedly now our biggest rival, a lot of people were worried about it, and yet in walks Pat Murphy, and he was under Craig Counsell for years. So let's not forget that. It's not like they just brought him in. They elevated him and brought him up to manager. But I think you can tell that he really enjoys the job. And when you enjoy the job, it's not really a job. You know, he enjoys going to the ballpark every day. I was just listening to he talked about his time in Milwaukee. He just did an interview recently, and he was just saying it's not really a job. He loves going there. He loves developing players and seeing them come into their own and being excited about their career. So I'm thrilled that they extended him.
Warren?
Well, he's one of the highest paid managers in baseball, in a small market area. So, I mean, what's that say about him? And he's back-to-back manager of the year with a team or an organization that doesn't have a lot of money. They're not going to go out and get free agents. They build from within, and he lets them play. And that's if you're letting the players play and they love playing for you, you got it made. You're gonna win. And he is. I mean, and again, the organization's good. They're one of the have been top farm systems in baseball for the last 5 to 8 years. So they're producing players, and he's letting them play, and they're having great success. I don't understand how they do it, because they let Adames go to the Giants. They let a couple of the best pitchers in the game go, but they've fallen on hard times, those pitchers. So they saw something that, had guys in the farm system to take their spot. And, so they haven't fallen off. They're contenders year in, year out, the way they're doing it. So they're obviously doing it right.
Tony?
And they say the Brewers don't have any money. They got some money somewhere. But you know what? Honestly, obviously he deserved it, right? I mean, how do you not extend somebody who wins manager of the year back to back? The only mistake the Brewers made, Craig Counsell got $40 million. I would have gave him $40 million and $1 just so he had more money than Craig Counsell since you decided to leave us and go to Chicago. Like that's the only issue I have with this. He should have got more money than Craig Counsell just to kick it to Craig Counsell for leaving the Brewers, which was a good organization to him, and he was winning where he was. So you gonna just leave us high and dry? How about we pay the next guy more money? That's the only problem I got with this. But you got to extend him. It just makes sense. Or like you say, give him 5 years. I know he's getting older, so that might be the thing with the 5-year deal. Him being in his 70s, he might not want to. He might want to play it by ear after 2 or 3 years. So I get that, but yeah, I would have gave him $40 million and $1.
You almost sound like The Price is Right. You know that?
Yeah,
I'll
just
bid
got to go a little over. That's the principle.
501, and the person that hit the 500 either has to hit it or the one at 501. That's pretty good. You ever watch that show, Tony, The Price is Right? Because that's what you sound like right now. Is that before your time? Before Bob Barker or whoever they got on there?
I remember Bob Barker. He's in the news for all the wrong reasons right now, but I remember Bob Barker.
Hey, you know what? I'll just make it short and sweet. I'd have given him 5 years too. He's worth every nickel of it. And for those of you that don't know, he has ties to our local university, Florida Atlantic University. And I had the opportunity when we were in Milwaukee to talk to him. If that was the question I would have talked about, his local ties at FAU. With that said, okay, let's talk about Barry's favorite person, and that's Don Mattingly, because in baseball history, on August 31st, he actually played third base, and he's left-handed in a game between the Mariners and the Yankees. I've always known him as the first baseman, Barry, but in this particular game, he ended up playing third base. Some thoughts?
Well, Donnie Baseball could play anywhere on the infield, really. He was a great defensive player. So, other than the fact he threw across the diamond with the wrong arm, I could envision him being able to go down to third base and play, be like You know, he's just one of those guys, Keith Hernandez type defensive player who could play anywhere on the infield. So, yeah, that doesn't surprise me. I'm sure it looked a little strange, but Donnie certainly has the athletic ability to go down and play third base.
Candy?
In 1986, left-handed first baseman Don Mattingly famously played third base for the Yankees for parts of 3 games, a rare feat for a left-hander at that position. He was filling in for an injured Mike, I'm going to butcher his last name, Pagliarulo.
Oh, Pagliarulo.
Pagliarulo, yeah.
Okay.
Yes.
Pagliarulo.
He performed well, even starting a double play in his short stint at the hot corner. So kudos for him.
Well, that's why I saw him in Clearwater running around there with the first baseman, the second base. Dead Don. I can play everywhere.
And it's highly unusual that you put a left-handed fielder in at third base.
Well, just like left-handers and quarterbacks in the NFL, same way. I mean, they just throw things the wrong way, but they still out there. All right, turn over Warren. Were you a right-hander or left-hander, Warren?
Right-handed.
Okay.
Right-handed all the way. You know,
Okay.
and he's, you know, great infielder. Was, you know, top defensive first baseman, you know, all the years he played, you know. So and he'd be perfect for third base. He'd play no doubles defense late in the game.
There you go.
All right, Hollywood.
Look, a little before my time, but it's amazing to think about left-handed. I kind of just want to boomerang a question back to you guys. Was there anything he couldn't do baseball-wise?
Yeah, right.
Maybe catch or pitch, maybe?
Well, I never asked him that question, but I get you.
Yeah. To be able to, like, left-handed shortstop, third baseman, unheard of. Like, just truly unheard of. So he's clearly, to be able to field and have the time to make those throws, nothing he couldn't do.
He's actually recognized as one of only 5 left-handed players to play third base in the modern MLB era.
Oh, interesting. Okay. Great stuff. All right, our featured topic of the night talks about expansion and realignment. We're going to start off with Rob Manfred saying, I can see expansion and drastic realignment in the future. So the first question I would ask everybody is, give me the 2 teams that you think are most likely, Barry, to get expansion teams. We'll start off with you, Barry.
I kind of like Nashville. I think it's a growth area. I think it's got a good shot. It's got obviously a long history in the minor leagues. So I kind of like Nashville. And it depends on what they want to do in Montreal. You know, they may want another Canadian team. If they do, it really depends on who's got the, $3 to $5 billion it's going to take to bring a team and a stadium in. And that's really what it's going to boil down to, I think. I mean, you look at Charlotte, North Carolina, there's about 6 to 7 million people within a 100-mile radius of Charlotte now. And same thing with the Raleigh-Durham area here in North Carolina. So there's a lot of, quality areas. I've seen Salt Lake City in there, but I don't buy that. I don't see them as going to be an expansion team. I think it really depends on what the goal, Manfred's goal is. They could put a team in Mexico. That would be a great spot. You put in Mexico City, 20 million people, they would draw there. Obviously, there's some security issues in there, but yeah, I think there's some worthy. And it really comes down to you'd really need to have $3 to $5 billion now to build your stadium, and because I don't think they're going to get some of the MLB money for the first 5-10 years, some crazy number. They don't get that extra money that the MLB network creates, so they're going to have a TV contract. So, there's a lot more to it than just picking a city. You got to pick money and a location.
Okay, great point. Sorry, Candy.
I mean, Nashville obviously is a contender. Salt Lake City, Portland, and Charlotte. I mean, I could see in any of those cities, especially Nashville, although I'd be sad because that would mean that probably the minor league would have to go from Nashville then. And
Nashville Sounds, yeah.
We've been there to that. Yep.
Warren?
Well, there's some good cities. You know, the one thing that they've got to do first is they've got to figure out what they're going to do in Tampa Bay. They've got to get them relocated and get them in a stadium so they can draw people so they can contend. Or they've contended on very really small market, and that's an area that can really use a good stadium, and they'd really support the team if they had a stadium to go to. That starts it, and then from there, Nashville's a great town, Charlotte's a great town. There's and those are areas where you've got to go a ways to see Major League Baseball.
Right.
So they can bring Major League Baseball into areas that don't have, you've got to fly or drive 5 or 6 hours to go see a Major League game. So those spots, really open up baseball, and then if they realign everything, that just makes it that much better.
Right. Well, and I'll talk about that in a moment. Tony?
I've been wanting one in Charlotte. I guess that's just me being a homer. The Knights sell out though a lot in Charlotte, the AAA team. I like Mexico City. I know the security risk of it, but Mexico and baseball in Mexico are just so big, and the population, you're almost guaranteed to sell a lot of tickets. Those are the two places I was thinking, for the West and the East. You get Charlotte, you get Mexico City. When it comes to Tampa though, Warren, I would love for them to move to Orlando. They've been trying to put a bid in, but the new owner seems they look like they're gonna build something in Tampa. So it looks like they're gonna actually give them a nice space with shopping and all that stuff. So it looks like they'll still end up in Tampa. But yeah, I think Charlotte or Mexico City would be great if they could figure out the logistics for Mexico City, because that's a whole nother can of worms.
Here's where I stand with this. Nashville's a lock. I would love to see the Montreal Expos return, without a doubt. And then I would say if Montreal comes back, then you put them in the same division as Toronto Blue Jays, and then you have an NHL kind of a rivalry built in. Charlotte, to me, I think it's a good candidate. I haven't heard anything whatsoever about a stadium or ownership that stepped up. That's why I'm a little leery there. And like you, Barry, Salt Lake City, to me, is a reach. Another rivalry with, obviously, with the Rockies. But if I were a betting man, I definitely would love to see Montreal, and Nashville's going to do it. So let's talk about the potential realignment. I know Warren talked about it. Well, and this comes from MLB, by the way, off of Fox. So take this for what it is, and we'll obviously be monitoring this at a later date. But in the NL Midwest, you have the Cubs, the White Sox, St. Louis, and the Reds. In the NL Central, you have the Rockies, Kansas City, Texas, and the Astros. In the National League Southwest, you have the Dodgers, Padres, the Diamondbacks, and the Angels. So again, this is all rivalry oriented. And then in this scenario, you have National League Northwest, you have the Mariners, the A's, the Giants, and now they're talking about a Portland team here. Go to the American League, you have the Yankees, the Mets, the Red Sox, and the Phillies. That's interesting. AL Mid-Atlantic, you have Baltimore, Washington, Pittsburgh, and Cleveland. Makes sense. AL Great Lakes, you have the Twins, the Tigers, the Brewers, Candy, and the Tigers in the same division, and yes, the Toronto Blue Jays. And the AL Southeast, you have the Braves, the Marlins, Tampa Bay, and they talk about a Charlotte team. Those are just preliminaries. I'm putting them out there. But Barry, just give me your overall thoughts about what I read off, and do any of those make sense? Because to me, they come across as more territorial, and they're interesting with their own rivalries within their state.
Well, I like the rivalry concept, but I'm go back to old school. I kind of like the alignments they have now. I think changing a team here and there, like Houston and Milwaukee, things like that, makes sense. There's just something about these, the old history of the game and where it is. But I get the fact that the rivalry may be a necessity to continue to draw fans. But I like the history of the game so much that I don't want to see it totally changed completely like it looks like they're trying to do.
Yeah, I mean that's not realignment. That's what you call an overhaul. Candy.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, with the Brewers, they used to be in the American League, so they used to play the Tigers back in the day. And now that they're in the National League, they have more of a rivalry with the Cubs, obviously. But that what you were talking about just sounds like a complete overhaul, change of everything. I can see some realignment depending on where you put the teams. Obviously, that's going to matter because if you put a team in Montreal and Portland, that would be different than putting one in Charlotte and Nashville, because obviously location matters. But and I think as much as we talk about these divisions, the fact that you're playing so many other teams anyways now, it's almost like the rivalry isn't as much because you're playing so many of the different teams these days with the interleague play.
True. But again, those are interesting divisions. Uncle Warren,
Well, the one thing I like about the way it's set up right now is everything's balanced. You know, before
Right.
when they had 16 American League teams and 14 National League teams, it wasn't balanced. So you played a different schedule. And, you know, the Mets played the Yankees
that's
6
it.
times. And, you know, I didn't go for that at all because they're going to knock each other out of the playoffs. You could be out of the playoffs by 1 or 2 games because you played a tougher schedule than the team that's going to the playoffs. You know, so at least the schedule's balanced. As long as they keep the schedule balanced, I'm fine with it. You know, and you have your rivalries. You know, the Mets and the Yankees. You know, Boston and the Yankees. You would keep all those rivalries going. You know, and that's what it takes, close proximity. Because I know when I played for the Cubs, when we went to St. Louis, it was crazy. There were a million Chicago Cub fans. They went to St. Louis and vice versa. When the Cardinals came up to play us in Chicago, it was the same way. And so you've got to keep those rivalries going. And I think that's what's going to help baseball and continue to make baseball grow.
Yeah, couldn't agree more. All right, Tony.
Yeah, with the balanced schedules, I feel like this doesn't matter as much anymore. Everybody playing everybody. Like when they went to that 2 or 3 years ago, it changed baseball. You know, interleague play was an opening weekend this year. You know, they used to be, you used to have to actually wait for that. Teams started out, the Yankees started the season off against the Giants, you know, so that's just the way of baseball now. So I don't think it really matters as much as it did years ago. You're going to play the Astros 3 times. You're going to play these guys 3 times. It's home this year, on the road this year. So I think it's okay. I do like the Mets, Red Sox, Phillies, Yankees division. That will be fun to see. But when it comes down to just the grand scheme of things, they're all going to play each other the same amount of times anyway.
Well, again, it was interesting. We'll see how it all plays out. But if Rob Manfred's going to talk about expansion, to me, it's interesting how they can box and draw this one up. So I'll be curious to see how it plays out. It's certainly worth a open-ended discussion. Cliff Neal says Nashville and Salt Lake City. I mean, those Nashville, I think, is a lot. Salt Lake City, you just never know about that one for sure. All right, so who's going to win the AL West? The Angels, the Astros, the A's, Mariners, or Texas? Barry.
Astros, I think win easily. That's my call.
Okay,
I'm
Candy.
sticking to it.
Yeah, I agree. I think the Astros are going to do it.
Warren.
I agree with the Astros. You know, they've been a solid organization now for the last 8 to 10 years. Yeah, they've been a contender. They're not going anywhere.
Mariners figure it out. It's been a rough first week of the season, but the Mariners end up winning it.
I'm going to go the Astros as well. I like what I saw during spring training. And when you get Josh Hader back, this guy could be the difference as well. So let's go ahead and talk about the National League West. You have the Diamondbacks, Dodgers, Giants, Padres, and Rockies. Barry.
I'm going to go out on a limb on this one. I'm going with the Dodgers.
Jimmy the Greek Bigfoot. Is that what we're going to call you next? Yeah, you really went on the limb. Okay.
I'm going to go way out there on this one.
Yeah, you really did. Okay, great stuff, Barry. Go ahead, Candy.
I'm going to go further out on that same limb, and I'm going to say Dodgers.
Yeah, all right. I guess the only thing I'm really doing is how they can make it more interesting with what was said in front of the Dodgers. Okay, Warren, you see the name of the game. How
Yeah,
far can you go to the limb?
yeah, I'm going out there too. They're the only team in the division that has a winning record. The other teams are fighting for second place without question.
Okay, Tony, how much you gonna go out on the limb?
I don't know if there's any more space on this limb. I might break the branch. But
The limb's going to break.
well, I'm gonna pick the Dodgers, but let me give a little context with that. I don't know what's happened to the National League West. Like, it was competitive, even though we knew the Dodgers were going to win. Everybody looks bad in the West this year, so that makes it even easier for the Dodgers to run away with it.
Well, pretty hard to go against the Dodgers. All I'll say is I'm not going out on a limb. They just simply print money. Period. So the New York Mets are going to wear a Davy patch on their jersey this year to honor the late Davy Johnson. What are your thoughts, Barry?
Well, he was a former teammate of both Warren and myself. I liked him. I liked him as a player. I liked him as a manager. I think it's a tribute that he earned with the Mets.
Yeah. Candy?
Yeah, he played. I mean, let's face it. He was manager of the Mets for how many years? He did really well there. He's in the New York Mets Hall of Fame. So kudos to them for recognizing someone that played for you for as many years and had the success that he did.
I once interviewed Davy Johnson, really a super nice guy. And he won a World Series with the Mets, and he's had success in a lot of places for sure. Warren?
Yeah, he was, well, like Barry said, he was our teammate, and he was a fun guy to be around. He and Lefty and Timmy McCarver, they were quite a crew. They were fun. They were always they were fun to be around. He was a great guy, great teammate. I enjoyed playing with him, and he definitely deserves all the accolades he gets from the New York Mets.
And a really good manager too, Tony.
Great honor for him. It'll probably stand out more if they stop putting so much advertisement on jerseys. just have the patch to represent him. I think the Mets make a lot of money. There's a lot of City Field posters and different stuff throughout the stadium. Just have the Davy Johnson patch on there.
There's a lot of respect for what they did over there. Okay, baseball history, August 14th, 1962, the year I was born, although it came later. Al Jackson tosses 215 pitches in a 15-inning loss for the Mets. The lefty throws 215 pitches, gives up 2 earned runs, and 6 hits. Barry, 215 pitches and a 15-inning loss. We know nobody will ever touch that one.
Oh no! Those days are over with. The 100-pitch limit is about all these guys can handle anymore. So I think if that is the record for pitches thrown, it's safe. That's all I can say.
All right, Candy, go to Cliff's comments. He gives you some on Davy Johnson. Go ahead.
Davy Johnson, my favorite Met manager ever. Appropriate for the 40th championship anniversary.
Great stuff, Cliff. Candy, some thoughts about Mr. Jackson.
We'll never see anything like 215 pitches in one game by one person ever again. We're lucky if we see half that almost. But kudos, man, that was way before my time, though. But good.
You weren't that bad before your time.
It was before your time, too, Scott, but not by mine.
Only by a few months. Really? Seriously? Really?
And he only gave up 6 hits, which included a 2-run single to third baseman Mel Roach in the 15th frame.
Well, I knew you were going to come up with that one, too. You come up with all these good stats. Great stuff, Candy. But really, 215 pitches, yes, indeed, is unheard of. All right, Uncle Warren.
Well, I can remember opening day, the Pirates and Giants, Juan Marichal and Bob Veal hooked up for like 15 innings, something ridiculous. Warren Spahn and Juan Marichal hooked up for a game and lasted 12 or 13 innings, so that was back in the day, back in the 50s and 60s. That was, that was normal. Guys going out there. Plus, a lot of them were on 4-man rotations and doing that. I mean, it was amazing what guys could do in those days. And I was able to start my 2 full seasons in the minor leagues. My last year in Double-A, I had 27 starts and had 19 complete games because I got to play every 5th day. I wanted to play the whole game. I wasn't leaving until the game was decided. I'm out there. I pitched 12 innings one night in Waterbury, Connecticut, 1-2-1.
Oh,
It just, I know I threw over 200 pitches. I knew I pitched one game in college. I know I threw 190 pitches. I got into the 9th inning.
Well, nowadays you got arms that are like paper mache is what they are.
Yeah.
What they are.
So so that's where I grew up, was watching guys like that. So it was only second nature for me.
Well, yeah. Again, they had paper mache, and what you had was a real arm. Okay, Tony.
When I saw this in the notes, I just instantly once again thought about my dad complaining. What's a pitch count? I never thought of a pitch count. You throw, you go 7, you go 8, and you hand it over. All this bullpen guys, 215 pitches. And then my second thought was, I always joke when a pitcher throws a good game and you lose. How upset are you as the pitcher, as the rest of the team? Like, hey, I did my job. All right. You guys could have gave me some runs. To lose and throw 215 pitches, I might have lost the game, but I'm winning one of these fights because somebody got to give me one. But it's amazing. We'll never see it again. Like you said, Bigfoot, it is safe and sound. He doesn't have to worry about that record at all.
Wait till we bring up a topic in a few weeks about records that'll never be broken. This one may not ever be on there, but that's why we're bringing it up in an isolated situation. One more baseball topic that we're going to talk about. Then we're going to go to the Final Four, which is going on right now. 13:09 left. Michigan holds an 11-7 lead over Connecticut. This game is in the early stages. All right, on August 13th, baseball history was made when Lou Brock joins the 3,000 hit club with a line drive that caroms off Dennis Lamp's hand. Lou Brock could do everything, and Dennis Lamp had something to do with his 3,000th hit.
I had a pretty good view of that since I was catching that game.
Oh, were you really?
It was funny. It's a really funny part of it. The ball hits Lamp, ricochets off. It's obviously his 3,000 hit. There's a crowd of people over at first base with Brock, and Lamp is in the clubhouse. He ran off the field, holding his arm like a little girl, running off the field, and that was it for Lampy that night. And I can tell you what the pitch was: a little sinker out over the plate, line drive off his hand. Game for him was over. It was funny, and it was it's good to be at a historical moment like that with Brock.
And now you get to talk about it on the air with your own show.
There you
with
go.
Michael.
Didn't know if I'd live long enough to do that.
Well, you evidently did, because obviously we all get to hear about it. Great stuff, Barry. That talk about adding a historical angle. Hey, I let everybody know that, I have a heck of a group here, but you and I go back a long ways, and now you get to tell your story about that 3,000 hit. Candy?
So he hit it in the 4th inning at Busch Stadium. It was in front of the largest weeknight crowd of the season, an attendance of 44,457 people. Kudos to him. Brock finished the 1979 season with 3,023 hits and retired that year. Also holding the MLB record for career stolen bases at the time he retired.
There you have it. Okay, Warren.
Well, he's obviously a great player, Hall of Famer, and another Cub, terrible trade by the Cubs. Gave a Hall of Famer away and didn't get very much in return. But I was fortunate to get to play against him. And my rookie year in spring training, we're playing the Cardinals down at St. Pete, and it's a bunt situation. He's on first base. I guess they probably weren't stealing a lot of bases in spring training, so Gary Templeton's going to bunt him over. So Mike Schmidt comes to the mound and says, "Okay, he's going to bunt the ball. Let him bunt the ball and get out of the way." So okay, He bunts the ball. Schmitty comes up, fields it, and turns in one motion and throws Brock out at second base before he goes into a slide.
Wow.
So, I'll never touch a bunt in the rest of my career. I'll just stay out of the way. Yeah, I mean, that's just amazing what Mike Schmidt could do defensively.
Yeah, no, I'm sure. Okay, Tony.
Yeah, don't know much about Lou Brock, but 3,000 hits is amazing. Always. That's normally the nice round number that gets you to the Hall of Fame, which he is a Hall of Famer. Didn't know that he was a Cub first. That just goes their long line of over 100 years of making mistakes. That's just a footnote in it, right? That's part of the reason why they weren't able to win World Series, mistakes like that. But that's pretty cool. And Bigfoot with the story, man. Catching that game's pretty dope. And you was in the biggest crowd. Was that the biggest crowd you ever played in front of? Did you notice in the moment?
No. We, like Warren said, we had a 4-game weekend series there. We played back in the day. You had sometimes you played a team 4 days in a row, and they drew over 50,000 a game for those 4 days. When we were there, and I'm sure it was the same with Brew when he was a Cub. When you were at St. Louis ballpark, you didn't know whether you were home or away.
Right.
There was about an equal number of people there were rooting for the Cubs or the Cardinals. And at the hotel, you couldn't get out of the room during the day because there'd be people up and down your hall, fans. It was crazy. That's a crazier place than the Yankee Red Sox rivalry, as far as I'm concerned.
Well, sure, the Cubs and the Cardinals have always been a great rivalry. There's no question. They're located a few hours apart from St. Louis to Chicago. I don't know what the drive is, 3 or 4 hours, as I understand. Can't be that much.
Something like that.
Yeah. All right, well, go ahead, Candy.
I want to add a couple other things. One of the things that was pointed out to me is that fans actually started lining up at 9 a.m., 11 hours before the start of the game, because in anticipation of Lou hitting. After it happened, fans showered themselves with beer and other stadium debris as the jamboree lasted for more than 15 minutes. Spectators in the left field bleachers received certificates proclaiming, "I was there when Lou Brock achieved hit number 3,000." Kind of cool.
It sure is. All right, well, now we're going to shift over to college basketball. We don't do this too much, but not often are we competing against the national championship. But let's talk about Dan Hurley for a moment, the coach for UConn. All he does is win. So his all-time tournament record is 20 wins and 5 losses. His record in the last 4 tournaments is 18-1. His record in the national semifinals is 3-0, and he's 2-0 in the national championship. Let's talk about his years when he began. In the first couple of seasons, he was 13-17 and 25-6. I'm not exactly sure where that was at, but Candy, you'll find out the teams that he's coached. But his first couple of years, 2010, 2011, he was 13-17 and 25-6. And after that, he began. You're talking about a guy that inherits bad programs and turns them around. But he was 8-21, 14-18, 23-10, 17-15, 25-10, and 26-8 on the second stop.
Rhode Island.
Well, that was Rhode Island. Okay, and what was the one before that?
Wagner.
Okay, thank you. So he's 113-82 in Rhode Island, 38-23 at Wagner, and of course his latest stop here at Connecticut again. In his first year, he's 16-17, goes 19-12, 15-8, 23-10, 31-8, 37-3, 24-11, 34-5. Of course, he's facing the Wolverines now. Barry, what are your thoughts about Dan Hurley? All this guy does is win.
I'm not a big fan of his whining and crying, but obviously he's a great coach. He beat my Dukies the other night, so I didn't like that. But he's a great coach. He comes from a long line there. His father was a great high school coach, probably the greatest high school coach in New Jersey history. So, and then his brother was a great player at Duke, and he's had a little rough time being a coach. But yeah, the guy can coach. The players seem to really like him. I understand he can be kind of hard on them, but they respond. I'm just not a big fan of the whining and crying he does on the sidelines. I'm more of a John Wooden guy who sits there with the with the thing in his hand, watches the game because he prepared his players to go play that game. So I'm just not a big Hurley guy, but hey, look, I got to appreciate the fact that he puts rings on the finger, and that's what it's all about.
Well, John Wooden, you're speaking of the choir here. I have the pyramids of success in my office. John Wooden is great. All right, Candy.
Right.
So he actually played 5 years of college basketball, including a redshirt year at Seton Hall. In a 2025 ESPN documentary, The Other Hurley, Hurley described how he had to step away from basketball at the beginning of his junior year in '93 after playing only 2 seasons for mental health reasons. He stated that even though I never was chasing my brother, the same year his brother Bobby, who had been a star player at Duke, was drafted 7th into the NBA, and Dan put enormous pressure on himself to succeed, leading to an anxiety condition. After taking the year off, he returned to have excellent junior and senior years at Seton Hall, averaging 13.8 and 14.3 points per game, respectively. You know, back in the day, you didn't hear about people taking breaks for mental health. You hear more and more about that now, but kudos to him for realizing that he needed to take that break, because look at where he's taken his career since then. You know, playing really well, a really good coach. Obviously, he's been coaching since 96 till now. He was an assistant back in 96 to 2001, and then 2001 to 2010, 10 to 12, 12 to 18, and 2018 to the present at UConn. But kudos to him for his career.
Okay, Uncle Warren.
Yeah, well, he's had a great career without question. You know, he's been to the Final Four numerous times, and that's tough to do with the way it's structured now with all 68 teams you start with and get down to the last 4. You know, that's remarkable, the things that he's done. You know, and he's from a great family. You know, like Barry said, his father was one of the all-time high school coaches in the state of New Jersey. And his brother was a great guard at Duke, and I believe somebody just broke his assist record, college assist record in the last couple weeks. Maybe it was during the tournament. You know, so he's from a great basketball family. You know, and it's really done a great job coaching.
Yeah, Bobby Hurley just was let go recently by Arizona State, but yeah,
right.
As far as a college player, there's no question he was pretty electrifying.
Great point. And he was hurt in a car wreck right outside the stadium in Sacramento.
Yeah, at the beginning of his career.
Yeah, ended his career.
That's too bad. I thought he had a pretty good career.
Yeah,
I actually saw him play in I believe it was the Sweet 16 or final Midwest Regional Phoenix Silverdome. Bobby Hurley was pretty good back then, but I'm glad he stayed around the game. Great points, Warren. Okay, go ahead, Tony.
Super intense. A lot of whining. I gotta agree with Barry. Oh my gosh. Oh, geez. Calm down. Relax. But I get it, man. He's a winner, and winning cures a lot. You look over a lot of stuff when you're winning games, and that's what he's been doing in UConn. He wins one tonight. He ties Calhoun for the most in UConn history. So that puts him. He's probably going to end up getting a statue outside of the stadium at some point. Good coach. A little interesting, you know, head-butting referees. Goes back into the intensity of him, but he's a winner, you know. And like you said, yeah, it's crazy. Like you said, Scott, he turns programs around, right? If you're struggling in hoops, call her. He's going to get you guys relevant. He's going to get you guys winning again. And that's hard to do in college sports, you know, especially when other schools got money flowing around and stuff like that. He's found a way to win in NIL, and a lot of coaches haven't. And that's why you see a lot of like the older coaches retiring. And he's figured it out.
And he received an offer from Kentucky and the Lakers, and he turned both of them down in 2024.
Thanks, Katie. I was going to say that, but I'm glad you'd fill it in. Yeah, he did. No, the Lakers in Kentucky, then they're big jobs too. More power to him. So yeah, this guy, all he does is win. All right, well, one more topic of the night, and it is pertaining to the finals tonight. UConn has never lost in the national championship game. They're 6-0 in the national championship, all told. When you go back to Jim Calhoun and Kevin Ollie, and of course now Hurley himself, and Dan Hurley passed the Sweet 16. He's 11-0. The games that UConn's won, they ended up beating Duke 77-74 99, 82-73 over Georgia Tech in 2004, 53-41 over I believe, Gonzaga in 2011. They beat Kentucky 60-54 in 2014, and obviously you have them beating San Diego State. Ironically, that was a team that beat Dusty May in Florida Atlantic, and now Dusty's obviously coaching the Wolverines, and they ended up beating Purdue, I believe, 75-60. So, and they had a 29% chance of beating Michigan tonight. Again, the game is early. Barry, some thoughts about those numbers?
Well, I kind of like their winning percentage in the final game. As I've always said, if you win your final playoff game in any sport,
Right.
You've had a great year, and they figured that out. So they'll be tough tonight, but I'll certainly be rooting against them.
Attaboy. I like the U of M spirit. All right, Candy, I know who you're rooting for. You better.
I love Dusty May and what he's done. I liked what he did down here at FAU and now up in Michigan. I'm a fan of his. As much as I might not always be a fan of Michigan, I am a fan tonight of Michigan.
Now you're speaking the right language, Evelyn. Okay. Go ahead, Warren.
Well, yeah. I mean, Dan Hurley's, or Connecticut in general, the program for itself speaks for itself. Undefeated in the Final Four game. Not too many colleges can say that. But go blue.
There you go. I like it. All right, Tony, you better stay on the Wolverine side if you know. I don't know.
Hey man, I'm rolling with you guys, but I will say this:
right,
you're down in South Florida, and you know how it is with the Marlins when they get to the playoffs or the big game, they're going to win it. Let's hope Hurley breaks that kind of curse, and when he gets there, he doesn't win it. I think you guys got it though. You guys have been blowing everybody out. You guys are good. Just don't get too tight in a close game, because that's the only downside for Michigan. They haven't been in a close game in a while. The way you guys been whooping everybody. So as long as they don't get tight, if it's a clutch game, I think Michigan got the talent to beat them.
Yeah, you're right. They scored 90 points in 5 games. I think that's a new NCAA record for sure. So we'll see whether or not.
Yep.
All right. Well, this is a part of the show where Barry has a viewpoint, and Bigfoot is going to let us know what his viewpoint is. The floor is yours, Barry.
Well, I'm going to hit on a subject we were going to talk about, but we're going to leave it until next week. But let's talk a little bit about the ABS system. I like it. I wish they do more of it. I think it really shows how bad some of these umpires are. I think that's a good thing. I hate for a game to end using the ABS, like I guess it was the Twins. I can't remember who the other team was, and the game was over on a ball 4 call, bases loaded, 3-2 count, and they reversed it. I don't think C.B. Buckner likes this system very much right now, but some of these bad umpires. And it's different because the strike zone is not exactly what has been called, because the machine sees things a little differently. So it's going to be interesting to see how it plays out over the course of a full season.
Yeah, C.B. Buckner seems to be getting the brunt of the criticism for a lot of what's going on. And we'll definitely be talking about him more next week on 108 Stitches Baseball Talk. But yeah, I'm glad. For me, I'm getting used to it, so I'm not exactly sure what it is. But I'll see it as time goes on for sure. Any other closing thoughts here? I know we have the game to look forward to. With that said, Tony, are you going to be here Wednesday night with us? Sports Exchange, I hope. I believe you are, right?
Yes.
Yep. We're going to have a lot of good topics. There's going to be some new rivalries within that show, Tony, that you're going to really gravitate. Oh yeah. And when Catsy goes on, anything can happen. Sorry, Tony. Why don't you let everybody know my mentor on TikTok, okay, how they can get a hold of you?
Well, on TikTok and all other social media, Talking Game 1. And for YouTube to catch the Talking Game episodes, it's Tony Talking Game. Doing the NBA wrap up with as many teams as possible this week. So make sure y'all checking out for that.
Great stuff. All right, Uncle Warren, give it to us.
I can be reached at brewster40@gmail.com and here on Monday nights with Scott, the Motor Mouth Madman.
I love it, Warren, Uncle Warren. I'll tell you, Candy will tell you. How many times have you said, Candy, I got the dream team on Monday night when it comes to baseball? Tell it, Candy.
You do. I mean, and you've talked about it, and that's what you're trying to grow all of your shows to have the creme de the creme on the experts on the shows that you have.
I love it when people play the game, manage it. It takes the show to an all new level in terms of credibility. Don't get me wrong about the average podcaster, but I think what I've tried to develop here is based on 48 years in the business. I want people to play the game, manage it, whatever, so they can give you an inside point of view. And Warren, ever since I paired you and Bigfoot together, I feel that we have an excellent 1-2 punch with you, and everybody else around us appreciates your insight, and they can develop their own personality around what they see. Like people like Tony, Eric, and the rest goes on and on. All right, Barry, put it out there. Let everybody know they get all these.
You can find me here on Monday nights with the Mad Mouth, the one and only Mad Mouth on Monday nights. I will be here.
I love it, man. Barry, my man. How many times did I sit there and pick your brain over at Fort Lauderdale Stadium in the manager's office? You're the only one that can tell. You watched me grow through the years. You can tell Warren. I was in there all the time, and you and I were having a good old time talking baseball, right?
There you go.
All right, Candy, take us the rest of the way.
South Florida Tribune Publishing Company published a book, Lessons from the Microphone, Tuning into the Enduring Wisdom of Visionary Leaders. It is written by our host, Scott, the Motor City Madmouth Morganroth. Talks about his 40-plus years in the industry and how it has evolved, old school media versus new school media. Get your copy today. It's available on Amazon, Barnes & Noble, Kindle, Google, and Apple Books. The audiobook is also out there, so wherever you get your audiobook. You can also find a link on our website, www.southfloridatribune.com, where there is a plethora of great content, so go check it out. If you like to listen to podcasts, you can find us wherever you get your podcast. If you want to advertise, sponsor a show, or you want to be a guest on one of these shows, or if you just want to ask a question and you don't want to put it in our chat room, you can always email us at southfloridatribune@gmail.com. Last but not least, you see that red subscribe button in that lower right-hand corner? If you see it, that means you have not yet subscribed to us. What are you waiting for? Just click it like a sheriff and then tell all your friends and family. One last thing, turn on that notification because you do not want to miss any of our great programming. Monday nights is baseball night. Tuesday nights is football. Wednesday nights, it's become a loaded night. You just never know what you're all going to get. You're going to get Sports Exchange. You're going to get Motor City Mad Mall show, and you can't miss that show because that is creme de la creme. And then Thursday nights, Sports Wrap. You're going to get either soccer or hockey. And then you're going to affectionately come over to what Scott calls the Country Club, my show called Fire Up. Definitely got to turn on those notifications so you're notified when we go live. Back to you, Scott.
All right, well, that does it for this edition of 186's Baseball Talk. On behalf of Barry Bigfoot, Candy Edling, Warren Brewstar, who's our star too, and Hollywood Tony, who will be Bessemer City Tony on Wednesday. My name is Scott Morgan, Motor City Madmouth. Thank you for joining us. We will see you next Monday night at 8 o'clock p.m. Eastern Time. Enjoy the rest of your night, and we'll have the more updated baseball information a little bit on Wednesday night, and for sure a lot more on next Monday. And I will have the two clips of Don Mattingly and Tony Diaz on next week, as Don Mattingly talks about the ABS, and Tony Diaz will talk about the changes in the game of baseball. So that does it. Have a good night, everybody. See you next Monday night. Enjoy the rest of the national championship. Good night, everybody.
Good night.